Hello, everyone. Welcome once again to the Eden Project North Community Conversations. Great to see everybody. I hope you're having a lovely day. Thanks for choosing to share your Friday lunchtime with us. We actually had our biggest ever number of sign-ups for this one, so it's good to see there's a real appetite out there for these conversations. Great to see some familiar faces in the room as well. So this time we are talking about the environment. That's our focus. We've got some brilliant guests to talk to you and to take some questions later on, who David Harland, our Chief Executive, will introduce shortly. We're going to run this in the usual format for those of you who haven't been here before. That is basically some short talks from our guests, and then we'll open up the floor to questions. If at any point a question occurs to you and you want to ask the panel, please do put your hand up in Zoom. That is in the option to do that is in the participants window. You can choose to put your hand up, and then you'll shoot to the top of our list and we can unmute you when the time comes to ask a question. Don't worry about doing that early on. You can get your hand up within the first few minutes and we'll come to you as soon as we're ready for questions. Please don't put your hand up like that because we won't necessarily see you. Please do it in the Zoom platform. Just a little bit of housekeeping. We are running these every month. The next one is on the 23rd of April, and it's all about local business. Please do have a look at edenproject.com/north for the full schedule and sign up for the next few sessions. I think that's about it from me. David Harland, our Eden Project International Chief Executive, over to you.
Well, thanks, Ben, and hello, everyone from Cornwall, and really lovely to see you. And as Ben says, it's great to start recognising a few friendly faces along the way. And we're really excited today about this particular session because it's a theme that is very close to our hearts at the Eden Project and also to our speakers. I thought I'd just start by saying we spoke last time and talked about our hopes for the budget nationally, and you might have noticed that there was no mention of the Eden Project. Plenty of mention of things like the Treasury going to Darlington and free ports and various other bits, but also importantly for us, levelling up and what's called shared prosperity. So I suppose the thing to say is we're very much still here. We're still on plan. We're not going anywhere. We are going to deliver this project. So please rest assured we're as committed as we ever were. And while we might have liked to mention from the Chancellor, we weren't expecting it, but a lot of work is going on behind the scenes on all of that. I think where I then just wanted to go was just to introduce our three speakers, and we've got Susanna Bleakley, we've got John Carter, and Lawrence Browning. So just to give you a bit of background on each of them, Susanna's going to speak first. She's the Chief Executive of the Morecambe Partnership. And has been leading that work. Is it possible for over 20 years? Is that right? Anyway, we'll accept that what it says on my page is right. And Susanna's been a wonderful contact and enthusiast for us because she's just so positive about bringing positive change to the communities of the Bay, and the sort of blend of getting the quality of the landscape being a key driver for economic opportunity as well. So Susanna's going to talk to us in a moment. John Carter's from the RSBPB, get me initials the right way round. He's a local lad, and unsurprisingly, being from Morecambe, developed an early interest in what is just the most spectacular bird life that you can get, I believe, on Morecambe Bay. So I guess it's probably a dream job for you, John, and he's currently the Visitor Experience Manager at Leighton Moss, and we'll bring that to life. And then Lawrence Brown is the Marine and Coast Senior Advisor for the Cumbria team at Natural England. It has got a rich background as well, working alongside the Cumbrian coast and the RSC in various marine conservation zones and so on. So I think you're a bit of an outdoorist as well, and seen out on the mountains and coastal paths from what I understand. So I think without further ado, I need to just say as well, on our team here from Eden today, we've got, there's quite a few. So we've got Emma Critchley, who's the project manager, waving at the current time. We've got Gabby Gilks there. Gabby, you're going to speak in a minute, I think. We've got Jane Knight, who's our landscape architect, and Tim Neri, who's also part of the program team. And Tom is there as well, Tom Connolly, who's keeping us on track, as well as Ben, who you heard from. And I'm so pleased, before I go and hand over to Suzanne, I'm really pleased to see Suzanne Moore has got new knitting from last time. So excellent. So good to see the progress between month on month. So, but without further ado, Susanna, I'm going to hand the floor to you, and we're looking forward to your slot.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone who's given their time to join us. I'm Susanna Bleakley, Chief Executive of Morecambe Bay Partnership. The Partnership's a small charity. We work all around the Bay, from Barrow to Fleetwood. We created the Bay Cycleway. We commissioned the ship sculpture at Heysham, Half Moon Bay, and we're busy delivering work in lots of different areas. Art and archaeology, birds and beach cleans, collecting memories and stories from our veteran fishermen. Sorry, my phone was ringing. I thought I'd put it on silent. And opening up the countryside for disabled access. One of the big programmes for us for the next couple of years is to make Morecambe Bay a centre for walking and cycling, to extend the Bay Cycleway and to promote family-friendly cycle routes and connect coastal pathways with viewpoints. What I find when I talk about the Bay, one of the recurring themes is how the scale and the grandeur of the views, the big skies, the constantly changing light, sea, water, shining sands, it is so elemental. And this evokes such a powerful emotional response. And this is in part what draws us in. Yes, for sure, there is something hardwired within us all that responds to the sea, but what makes Morecambe Bay special and different is these vast sand and mud flats. Morecambe Bay is the largest intertidal area in Britain, and it's these sands, these vast sands, that give us something extra, something special. It gives us some of the things that are so unique about Morecambe Bay. It means that they create the feeding grounds for internationally important numbers of birds. They give us the famous Cross Bay walks. And we have this tradition of collecting shellfish when the tide is out. So fishing on foot, and not always from a boat, but today by quad bike or by horse and cart in the past. Right now, around the Bay, we have curlews returning to nesting sites. So my organisation is restarting community work to protect their nests. Later in the spring, we've got training for volunteers to learn coastal archaeology survey skills so that we can identify those footprints in the soft sand sediments, those footprints that may be 8,000 or more years old, so we can build up a picture of how prehistoric people used the bay. So if any of this sounds exciting to you and you want to get involved in a beach clean, in archaeology work, in community heritage, in bird surveys or anything, just look us up, Morecambe Bay Partnership, look us up and get in touch via social media, on our website, sign up for our newsletter, and then you can be sure you don't miss anything. One thing for me about being an environmentalist, it isn't just one thing. It is not just about good science. It's about getting the politics right, getting the communication right, and so much more too. You really need a holistic approach to be a true environmentalist. One of the reasons I'm so excited about Eden is that they are among the best people in helping to open hearts through telling stories of nature. And once people have got their hearts opened, then it's so much easier for them to have their ears open and to hear what are sometimes difficult messages around climate change and other things. I feel that the Bay has perhaps been somewhat overlooked, overshadowed in the past by some of our better known destinations, but Eden Project North can change that. There are really big opportunities to bring Bay-wide benefits to the communities all around the Bay, and to raise the profile of the Bay, to revitalise its image on the national and the international stage. If we can all pull together for a shared vision, a shared image, if we can all work together, then we have so much more opportunity for success. And I think what many of us want is to attract visitors who will travel around the bay sustainably, who will stay for longer. High quality visitors even could really be the high quality attraction that creates a pivot to bring higher value tourism. And these high quality visitors spending more money for our local communities will bring benefits all around the bay. And with my work and our work as Morecambe Bay Partnership celebrating the bay, we celebrate and conserve the heritage and the nature that makes the bay special. We work in partnership with lots of other groups. By all working together, if we're all pulling together, we can bring a better future, one where the whole bay benefits and where the bay can take a new place on the international stage. And that sounds pretty exciting to me. Thank you.
That was great. Thank you, Susanna. Sorry, I was just trying to press the right button. So really super. And God, we should have given you even longer. So I was just enjoying that a great deal. So thank you.
I'm so sorry about the call. I hope it didn't disrupt it too much.
It didn't, but we're now intrigued who it was. But tell us.
I don't know. They've left a message anyway. They can wait.
So we're going to head over to John, if that's all right. John, the floor is yours.
Thank you. That was great. Susanna really hit upon a lot of the things that I was going to talk about, and I'll probably just summarise a little bit toward the end. But I'll just tell you a little bit about RSPB Leighton Moss and our involvement within the local area and within the bay. For those of you who perhaps don't know about us. We're a wetland nature reserve sat in the corner of Morecambe Bay, just near Carnforth, and we also manage areas of Morecambe Bay itself. But the main reason that Leighton Moss exists is because it's a very large reed bed. Now, reed beds are quite scarce habitats across the UK, and we took on Leighton Moss in the mid-60s primarily to protect a bird called the bittern, which is a very habitat-specific bird, and it lives in the reed beds. And It's a very rare bird, and through the kind of work that the RSPB and other conservation organisations have been doing in recent years, it's starting to have a bit of a turnaround. It's doing very well for itself. But apart from that, we don't just kind of focus on that one thing on those reed beds. We're kind of concerned with it in the broader landscape as well. And we do own and manage, or at least large areas of Morecambe Bay, the equivalent in size. They always put these things in football pitches so people can picture it. So it's about 2,500 football pitches, the area that we manage in the bay. And that's intertidal, it's mudflat, it's salt marsh. And these are really important places for lots of different birds. And it's not just about birds. That's the other thing, you can't just kind of expect birds to kind of get on because you kind of secure a space for them. Habitat management, water quality, all those things are all pivotal to the well-being of the whole ecosystem that the birds are part of. And so that's very much part of what we do. So from a kind of scientific perspective, that's our remit. We're a Ramsar site. We're a triple SI, which is a site of special scientific interest. We have a special protection area. And so that these kind of designations that protect the areas that we work with. But we're also very keen to share that with people. It's about people connecting with nature. And that, to me, is the most important thing. As I said earlier, or as Dave said earlier, I grew up in Morecambe, and I grew up with the sound of oyster catchers in my ears. And I spent all my days, splashing around on the mud and, fishing for crabs and all those kinds of things that kids do. But birds really kind of had a resonance with me. And when I was a little kid, I used to cycle up to Leighton Moss on my weekends and my Easter holidays and things like that, and spend days just wandering around that whole area. Now, it sits within the Silverdale, Arnside Silverdale area of outstanding natural beauty. And that little corner of the bay is astonishingly rich in habitat and diversity and areas you can go and explore. Leighton Moss is just one place you can go and explore in this fabulous area. There are lots of places to go and connect with nature. And what we want to do with our partners is constantly try and reach out to connect with people and get them to come along. So, of course, we're a destination site. So we have a cafe and a shop and lots of nice trails and hides, and we've got a 9-metre high sky tower, which gives you fabulous views over the reed beds. But we also have lots of school visits to the site. And it's really important that we kind of engage with young people and try and get those people interested in nature. And just about the environment, there are lots of pressing issues. We all know about climate change. We all know about all the threats to the environment. And I think collectively we can kind of come together and do something really worthwhile for the future. The RSPB reaches out to people to connect with nature for multiple reasons. One, we want people to enjoy the environment that they live in. We want people to share the thrill that I have of nature and of bird life and wildlife. But also just by kind of creating kind of a family atmosphere on a nature reserve, it doesn't become quite so sort of distinct, a thing that doesn't relate to you. So we don't want it to be just about bird watchers. I think there's a kind of a fear that you go to a nature reserve and you're going to be kind of surrounded by very serious people who just want to look at birds and nothing else. We're very keen to make sure that it's an experience that everybody can enjoy. And one thing that happened during the lockdown in the past year or so is that there's been this massive growth in interest of people in birds and nature generally around where they live. They've suddenly become quite focused on things that they hadn't really noticed before. So they may have got in the car and driven somewhere, gone some distance for a day out. They suddenly had to explore green areas near where they live. They could walk a short distance. They discovered canals, rivers, parks that they'd never even really stepped foot in before. And then they suddenly heard bird song. What was all this bird song around? And this has been widely talked about across the entire country. And it kind of changed people's perception of nature where they live. And that is a great starting point for us, I think, because something like Eden, is going to have that appeal to those people who want to learn more about the environment, learn more about nature, see why it's valuable, why it's worth protecting, and why we're all involved in it so heavily. For some reason, Windows is about to shut me out in 10 minutes, so I'll crack on. Apparently I'm going to restart. So basically, the thing we need to do is share the magic of Morecambe Bay. That's really important, I think. And I think between us all, we can kind of attract an audience who are kind of ready to take it to the next stage, to learn a little bit more. They have had this little awakening. It's a positive thing, if we can think of it as a positive thing to come out of the crisis that we're currently in, is that people are ready to explore nature in a much more kind of holistic sense. And I think we can bring people to Morecambe from outside the area to share the magic that we all know about, but to see this fabulous area, explore it more. And we can be part of that. We can all be part of that. We can be the next stage. We can be the bit that people then go on to find out even more. I think it's a tricky thing to kind of think about in such a big scale, but I mean, we have about 100,000 visitors a year to Leighton Moss. Now, most of those are probably already pretty focused on what they're expecting to get. What we can see here is people coming to Eden curious, what is this thing? What is Morecambe Bay? What is this all about? But because you've already got an existing brand in Eden, people already have some expectations of what they're going to get. But then we can take them on that journey from there further and onward. And hopefully in years to come, that creates a far more kind of a greater sense of the environment and of nature and how it works with us as a society as well. And that's kind of it. That's my bit. It's a clarion call to the future, really.
Well, what a lovely strapline, John, to finish with. A clarion call to the future. We have this line about the future remains ours to make, and it's a similar thing. And gosh, I enjoyed that. Thank you. And I think you're absolutely right. Something that we've talked about a lot, which is that coming out of the pandemic, our exposure to the natural world has in many cases been greater, hasn't it? And we're starting to think about the communities that we want to build from here. And I think that's going to be a theme that is coming out of all of these sessions. So and sharing the magic of Morecambe Bay has been just jumped on by the Eden team as well, because that's exactly right, and something that actually at the very start of this project was what drew us in. So John, brilliant. Anyone who wasn't an enthusiast before now is. So after that, and the standard has been set very high, Lawrence. No pressure at all, but the floor is now yours. So this is just getting better and better. So talk us through some more.
Thank you. So I don't have a catchy strapline like that, I'm afraid. That was inspired, that one. So I thought I would start just by explaining what Natural England is and what we do. So rather dryly, our official title is as a statutory nature conservation body for England. What that really means is that we are the government's advisor covering the natural environment. And our purpose generally is to help to protect and to restore the natural world. And that takes many forms. One of the keystones of Natural England's work has always been a focus around protected sites. We're involved in the designation of these sites, so that's from recommending them to understanding what features and what animals live there, what plants are there, what the habitats are, what's special and what needs protecting. In addition to the protected sites, which we've heard a bit about from the previous two speakers, we're now looking at spreading our work to conserve and enhance the natural environment much further through nature recovery networks. And we're looking at wider opportunities for recovering and restoring habitats across the piece. So for my part, contributing to that work through the Cumbria Nature Recovery Network pilot, which is a brand new scheme, and we're contributing to identifying those opportunities. It's been mentioned the different types of designations that Morecambe Bay has. I'll just talk you through a bit of what that means and why that's special. So it's a special area of conservation for some of its amazing, rare or valuable habitats. So this is things like the mud and sand flats, the salt marshes, the seagrass meadows that we have up in the Walney Channel, the biogenic reefs. So these are the mussels, which Susanna mentioned earlier, and also honeycomb worm, which are a marine worm that builds these honeycomb structures out on the tidal flats. It's also a special protection area, and we've heard a lot about birds already. The special protection area was put in place because of just how important Morecambe Bay is, not just in the region or in the UK, but on a European scale. Over 250,000 birds use the site every winter and throughout their migration as well. As well as these European designations, it's got other types of designations. So site of special scientific interest have already been mentioned. And these are sites that Natural England actually notify ourselves, again, for a huge number of features. And these underpin a lot of these bigger sites. A more recent addition has been marine conservation zones. So these are a project that was initiated in 2009. And since then, there have been 3 rounds of designation of marine conservation zones, and we now have one within Morecambe Bay. This covers the Wyre Estuary and the Lune Estuary and protects a very special migratory fish called the smelt. This lives in coastal waters and estuaries for most of the year, and then pushes it up in early spring, about this time of year, into the lowest freshwater reaches of these rivers to spawn. If you ever come across one, you'll know it. They smell very strongly of cucumber, so they're pretty unmistakable from handling them. Natural England are really keen on working with partners Another of our core purposes is around access to the environment and engagement of the public with the environment. And our partners like Eden Project, like the RSPB, like Morecambe Bay Partnership are really important in delivering this work. And our role within these various partnerships is really to help them to deliver projects that not only meet their goals, but also protect and enhance the natural environment. One of our access projects is the England Coastal Path, which you may have come across, and that ties in with things the Morecambe Bay Partnership are doing around the Morecambe Bay Cycleway. We also work with the Northwestern Inshore Fisheries and Conservation Authority and the fishermen that they work with, who work the sands for the cockles and the mussel beds to ensure that those fisheries are green and work with the natural environment rather than against it. We are really happy to be working with the Eden Project because it's the type of project that can really raise the profile of a site like Morecambe Bay, which hopefully I've illustrated has a huge number of really valuable aspects to it, and has been somewhat neglected for some of the flashier locations in the past. And we really want to be able to help them share that magic and really deliver a project that helps people to enjoy that and protect and enhance further that environment that we all love so much in the Bay.
Thank you, Lawrence. That was super. I mean, working within the natural environment, is not a bad strapline, by the way, to take on, John. So, but thank you for that. We're going to change the order slightly, actually, here, just quickly, and we are conscious there's a couple of people with hands up. We will come back there in a second. I'm actually going to go to Tim Nary of the Eden team next, just before we go to Gabby, and they have promised to be succinct, but I think Tim has got the excitement about talking about the environmental impact assessment, haven't you, Tim? So are you going to come off mute, or are you going to leave me just hanging? There we go. Lovely. So Tim, all yours.
Okay, thanks. And hello, everyone. I will be quick. So as you probably know, we're marching quite fast now to get our planning application in summer. Normally the design pack, the drawings and the design statement would be the major part of any planning application. But because of the nature of this project and its complexity, we have to do a full, what's called environmental statement. And in fact, although this is quite a difficult piece of work, we quite like the fact that we've got to do it because it accounts for all of these wonderful things that you've just heard on the call just previously. But it's actually a huge amount of work, and just to resonate with Dave's intro comments about the fact we're still very committed here. The planning application will cost us well over £1 million to actually deposit that with the City Council. So it's a huge piece of work. We've probably got around 10 specialist sub-consultants working with us at the moment. They're all experts in their field. And then some of the people you've heard from today. There's a stakeholder group. There's about 10 statutory stakeholders and about another 10 non-statutory stakeholders. So, it's a really incredible piece of work, but we hope it will stand us in good stead. And actually, beyond the application, we'll have all learned some things about the Bay that maybe we didn't know about before. The chapters of the environmental statement will resonate with a lot of the people on the call because it covers all sorts of stuff: visual impact, heritage, ecology, climate, transport, water and drainage and utilities, geotechnical. It really is a huge piece of work. And in fact, once we've actually finished some of the initial designs, the planning and environment team, I think some of them are actually on this call. So hello, WSP and others, if you're there. It will take them, 3 to 4 months to actually write the environmental statement so we can deposit the plans with the City Council and have the best chance of success. The last thing I would just say on that is that part of planning policy at the moment is to make sure that we've got buildings and developments that meet the climate challenge. And we very much want this to be a super sustainable building with net zero credentials, and we're working very hard to achieve that. So I think that was all I was going to say, Dave, if there's anything else.
Thank you. Thanks, Tim. We'll be working very hard. We won't be opening anything that's not at least net zero. So I think it's probably the stronger way of putting it. So, but thanks for that, Tim. That just sets out a little bit of background for everyone. And then Gabby, who's disappeared off my screen, but I'm hoping is still there. You're still here, hopefully. I know we've temporarily lost John, but Gabby, the floor is yours just to wrap us up, and then we'll open up to questions.
Sure. Yeah, I'm really keen to get on to questions. But I think it's no surprise to everybody here that we've been totally inspired by the nature of Morecambe Bay and the rhythms and the systems and the bird migrations that are coming on their way north and flying off to Africa, and species that are migrating from the Caribbean, and tides that are racing in and out. And our particular job here is to use every means necessary to bring that stuff to life. And that's what we excel in, and we're really excited to do and will do. But beyond that, we connect people to the living world and each other. And we see Morecambe as the chance to rebrand coastal communities, to use this incredible drama that's played out around us and bring it to life to visitors and locals, and use it as a catalyst for transformation for the wider community. So I was just going to mention, we've got a bid in with People's Postcode Lottery to do exactly that, to get people out into nature, to learn more about it, to foster volunteer networks, to train each other in our areas of expertise and enjoy it together. So watch the space.
Thank you, Gabby. So a few questions coming in already. So I think what we'll do now, Ben, is hand it to you to orchestrate the Q&A, if that's all right. And I'm hoping, have we managed to get John back? I've as well, as because I know he had trouble with his laptop, but Tom, there he is.
Oh, there he is. He's just doing the waiting. Tom, if you could let him in and make him a co-host, please, that would be great. Thanks, Dave, and thank you to everybody who spoke. It was all really interesting stuff. So just, I see we have two people waiting to ask questions, which is great already. If anybody who does want to ask a question, please raise your hand, as Alex and Barry have there in the participants window. Please put your hand up and we'll come to you in order. So Alex, I think you must have set the world record for quickest hand up. Tom will unmute you shortly, and then if you could direct your question to the guys, please.
Thank you. Yes. So thanks again for another really good communication session. My question is, and Tim Neri mentioned that you're working on the planning application to be submitted in the summer. So I just wanted to get some idea of what the timetable is for the planning application, and then when do you hope to break ground?
So, Tim, do you want to answer the first half of that question?
Sure. So once we get consent, which we're very confident we will get that, of course, we can really start to move into detailed design and start actually tendering. I think the earliest we can actually break ground is probably January of next year, although people may see some activity because we're going to do some ground investigation, dig some trial pits and understand how the foundation design can be worked out. But I think January 22 is the big moment.
And do you want to just answer a bit more on the planning point as well, Tim, about what people should expect over the next few months, you or Em?
Yeah, sure. So obviously with lockdown, it's been it's going to be challenging for us to do what I'd call a normal consultation process. Our partners, WSP, we're talking with them at the moment about setting up a virtual room, not dissimilar to this, where you can actually go into a portal online and actually see and pull down lots of information about the scheme and respond to it. But in fact, we're definitely going to do that online. And we just hope that restrictions ease so that we might still be able to do something actually in Morecambe town itself physically.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Dave. And thanks for your question, Alex. Well, we've had a lot of hands go up during that question. So just so we get through everyone, let's go straight to Barry. Barry, you're next. Barry Wright. If you could unmute Barry. Thank you.
Hi. You receiving okay?
Loud and clear, Barry.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm a new Zoomer, so please be patient with me. Great talk today, particularly from Susanna. I just asked the question, there's been all this about our beautiful area, which I agree with. And we're getting quite a lot of media attention from these dramas, The Bay and Peaky Blinders. But what I fail to miss, whether it's due to COVID or whatever, there's a lot of programs on television now of people doing coastal walks and series. Christina, do we do anything to try? That's where we should be with Morecambe Bay. We should certainly be with these series like Kate Humble's doing at the moment on coastal walks. This beautiful area, but we seem to miss out. Do we sort of promote ourselves in any way on these documentaries? That's my question, really.
So, Susanna, do you want to say anything on that particularly? If we can unmute.
It's just we seem to be in the wrong area. I mean, the Bay dramas are great, terrific, but there is another area which is all about the Bay and very much so about the Bay. And we seem to miss out on those. As I say, the coastal walks, there seems to be an abundance of these programs at the moment on the media, due to COVID maybe, but it'd be nice to see Morecambe Bay on there. We have a lot to offer.
I think we're saying the same thing, Barry. That's very much what I was saying, is that the Bay has been somewhat overlooked. Amongst local people and people who know the Bay, there is a really strong passion for the Bay. And yet I think when people think about the outdoors, they tend to overlook the fact that the outdoors start literally outside your front door. They see there's some kind of snobbery that you have to go to the Central Lake District or the High Fells before you're outdoors. And I think we all need to learn to be friendlier and to buddy up with those few steps right outside our front door and to make the most of them. There is more work that is being done by Natural England and the local authorities around what is being called the English Coastal Path. So there is a requirement by government for the entire coast of England to be accessible, for there to be a single coastal path around the entire coast of England, and the work for that is well underway, and there will be new sections of that opening up. So far, parts of West Cumbria are open, and Walney Island is the first area within Morecambe Bay. One of the programmes that we have worked together with Natural England on there is that all that Natural England is required to do and has been given the funding for is literally to make sure that the footpath exists and very basic signage is in place. And that in effect means that there is a product that is not being brought to market, that is not being marketed, not being promoted, not being presented. I mentioned one of the projects that we're probably best known for is the Bay Cycleway. It is actually one of the most popular of Sustrans cycle routes, long distance cycle routes in the country. The popularity of the Bay Cycleway is something that we really want to build on, and we are working with Natural England and the local authorities to make sure that when the English Coastal Path is opened, the Morecambe Bay section is called the Bay Coastal Way. So it picks up on the same branding, and that we do work with Natural England and others to present it to market, because it's really, really important that people can enjoy the coast, but do so responsibly and are helped to understand how to behave responsibly. We inform their discretion so that we don't have dogs off leads when there's really important wader roosts that could be disturbed, and also that people don't get themselves into difficulty.
Thank you very much.
A great answer, Susanna. I think there's, we've had the opposite problem here, Barry. Cornwall has been on everyone's list. So everyone has been doing the coastal paths of Cornwall and coming to Cornwall to see us in lockdown. But I think that's partly because of the way that Cornwall has approached the last 20 years as well, of having a series of things that mean that people want to visit. And I think we are one of those things, along with a whole heap of other initiatives that others will mention, to give reasons to come to the Northwest, so that people really have got those reasons. So, but we still want to see the third series of the Bay, surely. I mean, we mustn't forget that either. So, Ben, back to you.
Could I mention that we do believe that there is a third series of the Bay. Filming will be starting very shortly. They got in touch with me because of the ship sculpture that I mentioned, which is it's like two people sitting. Here we go. I've got a picture of it. Here's my prop. I've got a picture of it. So this is the sculpture at Half Moon Bay. And in fact, we've got the artist who we commissioned to create this, who is called Anna Gillespie. This sculpture is coming up for its second birthday. It's going to be 2 years since it was launched, if you like, or unveiled. And at the end of this month, it will be 2 years. So we've invited Anna Gillespie to do a talk for us. And if you go to our website, you can book for that talk. But Anna Gillespie is a sculptress who created that wonderful sculpture. The reason I'm mentioning this is that I had to sign a disclaimer with ITV3 that they could film and use the ship sculpture within the opening credits. So I really hope that they do, and that also helps to raise the profile of the Bay.
And he does. Super. Thanks, Susanna. Right, Ben.
Thank you, Susanna. Thanks, Dave. And thank you, Barry, for your question. Really appreciate it. Good to see you coming back each time as well. Nice to see people making a return visit to the conversations. Next up, Abby Mills. Tom, if you could do the honours on the unmuting. Hi, Abby. What's your question, please?
Hiya. Just interested in finding out the net zero promise, which is absolutely brilliant. Will it include all the transport that visitors are going to be using to get to the project? And how's that going to be included in the environmental impact assessment?
So I'll pick that up, Abby. Great question. It's something that we're wrestling with at our home in Cornwall as well, and looking at. So I'll let Tim give the technical answer about the EIA, but it's something that we're really conscious of. It's how we're trying to get people to come, and I think there's going to be a difference between our day one opening strategy and where we think it's going to go over the course of the perhaps the first 5 years. And I think there's a number of very positive steps that could be taken. We're slightly reliant on as well on other infrastructure going in order to deliver some of those aspects. And I think we've talked before about trains and the potential of using the infrastructure that's there to encourage people out of their cars, using the cycleways and so on. But actually, I don't know if any of our speakers want to come in, but perhaps Tim wants to, particularly on that.
I think you've captured it, Dave. We're hoping that the project is a catalyst for some other partners to deliver some really interesting schemes. I know there's a conversation happening right now with the with Network Rail about getting some extra services squeezed into the timetable without doing any sort of huge capital work. So that's kind of really good. Working very hard with WSP to make sure our traffic and transport proposals are compatible with all of that and everyone's expectations in the town.
But that won't be included in the net zero because obviously. It's interesting because I don't think there's a hard yes or no on that. We've got to make sure that we're part of a longer term solution to move to net zero. I think in terms of the actual accreditation we're seeking for our building, specifically, it would be a no on that one.
But I think the aspiration, though, Abby, that you're putting forward is absolutely in our target zone to say, how do we deal with that as well? So that's absolutely a perfectly understood and well-made point. So appreciate the question.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Abby. Thanks, Tim and Dave. Next up is Erica Jones. Erica, when you get unmuted, if you could ask your question, please.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Yeah. When we're in autumn 19, I think it was, we had a presentation in Morecambe at the platform, which David Howland was at, and various ideas were put forward. And one of my ideas was about having a Lido open air pool. And I think, David, you indicated that you'd gone up to Grange to look at an old one, a disused one. and I got the impression that it was on your radar, something you might do. But it's not only that idea, but it's other ideas that were put forward. When will we actually know that these ideas have been incorporated into like a blueprint, as you were? You know, what ideas have been taken on? Because I feel very strongly that Morecambe really not served very well in the form of a pool. You know, we have to share only one with Lancaster, run by the Lancashire County Council, called Saltaire. That's the only one we have, you know, and I feel that people in Morecambe, although the Eden Project North is going to be a fantastic visitor attraction, like the one in which I've been to Cornwall one about 15 years ago. Fantastic, it was fantastic. Didn't get around it all, you know, there was so much there. But I just feel that people in Morecambe have got to get extra out of it in like a year-round attraction that they can go to, you know, a pool that can be open or closed with a closed roof, and bring in investment and money to the area by local people, you know, all year round. When will we know whether these ideas have been taken on board or not?
Well, great question, Erica, and thank you for coming to Cornwall, and you're welcome back anytime. So to finish off your walk around. I think when we started, it's worth saying that we had been quite interested in how we use the water from the bay kind of coming in and out. You're absolutely right. And there was some, perhaps even some early imagery there. It's not in the current plans, just to be clear. Immersive environments are still in there. And I might ask Jane in a moment just to speak a little bit more to that, perhaps. But I think we are very aware of the local infrastructure and the project, which is the Save the Grange Lido, I think has just been mentioned there. It's a project that we're well aware of and supportive of. And we've got to, I think, to answer your question about what gets included, what doesn't, can we unmute Jane to talk a little bit more about that? There we go. That would be perfect.
I did it myself, Dave.
Did you?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, we have considered creating a swimming pool in the project, but I think we were quite conscious that we didn't want to compete with Grange Lido and the ambitions that they have to open that up. And we are thinking about creating opportunities for people to interact with water and get together more ideas about the feeling of tide. But I think the idea of creating a swimming pool, it's not really what we do. You know, we're into connecting people with the natural world rather than creating leisure pools and things like that. So, but I think there will be plenty of opportunities to engage with water, but perhaps in a slightly different way than you're thinking. But saying that also, we will be making an environment that I think local people will enjoy year round. And that ideas are developing around that.
Thank you, Jane. Is anyone else? Sorry, I realised I might have jumped in when you hadn't finished yet. Is anyone anything else to say on that question, Dave or Jane?
No, I think we're good. I think we're exploring all of those, and I think we recognise that we want to be a catalyst here, don't we, towards other people wanting to invest in the area, wanting to fix things like the Lido, but also I see there's a comment in the chat around frontier land and redevelopments, and there's plenty of other examples as well. So I think that's we're trying to give people confidence as well to do some of those things. So it's a great, well-made point by Erica, and one that we're very conscious of.
Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Jane. And thanks, Erica, for your question. Peter Stevenson is up next. If you wait for your unmuting, and then if you could ask a question, please, Peter.
Hi, Dan. Hi, everyone. Thanks for this. It's fantastic to hear so much enthusiasm for Morecambe Bay. We're a small startup business called Morecambe Bay Chowder Company. We're working with local sustainable fishing and local businesses, and we're going to be serving seafood chowder from a solar powered catering bike from next month. And I suppose my question is, I mean, we're so excited that Eden are coming. What sort of opportunities will there be for small businesses such as ourselves and others to work with Eden?
Great question. I might go, Gabby, do you want to pick that one up?
Well, Yeah, and it's probably for others to come in on this too, but I mean, there's a whole range of ways that local businesses can be involved. I love chowder, by the way. I'm so delighted to see someone using local produce for a particular product. We've got a whole food strategy, and we're really aware actually that you can change the entire fortunes of a place just by bringing something like the cockle back into fashion. So I would urge you just to drop us an email and let us know that you're about, because our whole food strategy is based on local provenance and using seasonal ingredients from within a given radius wherever possible, and eating according to the Anthropocene diet. So what's best for human health and what's best for the planet, which I would suggest local seafood chowder fits perfectly into. So if anyone's a startup in the food and drink industry wants to get in touch, we are, and actually part of Erica's question as well is how do you know that you are being heard and registered? And we have a whole gang here. We register every inquiry that we get, and we endeavour to get back. We'll work with as many people as possible. And through our procurement, through our food, through using Eden as a place to meet and promote what's already going on. So there'll be whole seasonal programming at the place as well, where we can potentially have farmers markets or food networks or community gatherings. So, that's for you guys to decide how you want to use us as your village hall as well.
Thanks.
Thanks, Gabby. And thank you, Peter. Great question. Looking forward to trying the chowder when we're next up there. I'm sure I speak on behalf of all the team in that. Next up, Colin Peacock. Colin, if you just wait for your unmuting.
Yeah, I'm unmuted. Thank you.
Hi, Colin. We can hear you loud and clear. What's your question, please?
Yeah. I put a couple of things in the chat, which I think is cleared up. The EIA is only really about the footprint of the building and its immediate surrounds. You're not fortunately having to do an EIA for the whole of Morecambe Bay, which is where we hope the impact will be. And the other one was directed at John. What have you got? How are you envisaging the connection between Eden and the RSPB work on Eden and the Wharton Myers project? And I'll replace my horrible picture by one of the Wharton Myers.
Okay. I'm not going to say too much about Wharton Myers specifically, because that will always be, I think, certainly for the near future, a non-public site. It's now going to manage specifically for habitat and for the wildlife, particularly for ground nesting waders, etc. And it probably won't become part of the public access of the RSPB. But I think there's an opportunity here for, as I kind of alluded to really, is that the people going to the Eden project will be open to learning about environmental and conservation issues and just about the landscape that they're in and why it's important, and why the bay is important, why tides are important, why birds are important. And hopefully, we will be able to be part of that story, either, with some presence at Eden from time to time in order to be able to share the story of nature in the bay and the value of it, but also to be able to bring those people then, potentially those people might want to do something else after they've been to Eden that continues that story. So we want to be the place they come to next. They come for, a day out or an afternoon out or whatever, to then find out more, take that next step and find out why, the area in a bigger picture kind of view is so vital and so important to nature. And I think that's where we come in, really. I think it's about joining up and being sure that we tell the same valuable story about the wonderful nature that's on our doorstep here. People will come from a considerable distance. I think isn't Morecambe the nearest seaside town to a motorway exit in the UK or something like that? So I mean, people can get here pretty quickly, quite easily. I know there's all kind of concerns around transport, but even at Leighton, we currently have discounted offers for people who travel to us by rail, because we don't want to see everybody driving to us. If people come by bike, by public transport, they get a discounted rate on entry, they get discounts in the cafe. And I think that kind of stuff can continue to be built this kind of just encouraging people to think about everything they do and the impact that everything they do, the impacts that they do have on the environment. And if we can get people from Morecambe to Leighton Moss and backwards and forwards sustainably, comfortably, and with this broader educational kind of result, then I think we're all going to be absolutely winning. Everybody will win. The people and us as organisations as well. Does that kind of answer your question?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Okay. Cheers.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Colin. I'm aware we've only got 5 minutes left, so we'll try and rattle through the remaining questions. I'm going to go to Diane Salmons next. Tom, if you could do that, please. Do the unmuting. Oh, we can't hear you, Diane. Hold on 1 second. Wait till you're unmuted. Oh, Tom, are we?
I've done it, but I can't see.
So I suggest what we do is why don't you go to another question? We won't forget you, Diane. We've got Mark as well, Ben.
Yeah, Mark. Tom, if you could, Mark Cullen, if you could unmute Mark. Mark, what's your question?
Hello there. I'll keep it brief. I run accommodation locally and a beekeeper as well. The question I have is really about the impact of rising sea levels and the planning around that. Are you building any sort of expectations into your planning and really your application about sort of the sustainability over maybe 50 years or so and what your projections are?
Yeah, I think Jane, Tim, which of you wants to dive in on that one? Tim's off the mark quick as all.
It's more of a Tim than me, I think.
Yeah, that's a really interesting question, because obviously we're hoping that we're going to make an impact that's going to reduce climate change, but we've also got design information that says, some of that may be inevitable. We need to design for resilience. So I know this is quite far ahead, but in 2077, it does actually seem like there could be, if there's a sea level rise that we're hoping won't happen, but there could be an issue on the site. So we do have to think about that. Sometimes the answer is not just to build stuff, build walls. We're actually also looking at the design life of the building. Who's to say that actually we don't give this, the sort of superstructure, a 30 to 50 design life and then come and do it all again. It's a different way of thinking about buildings because we think of them as being so permanent, but we are looking at all of those things. And for any coastal community, that's a really, really big issue at the moment. Yeah.
Great, thank you.
Thanks, Tim. Thank you, Mark. Diane, we seem to have been able to unmute you. What's your question, please?
Okay, hi. Just to say, I'm incredibly excited about Eden coming to the north. I've been a friend of Eden since before it opened down in Cornwall, and not been able to visit it anywhere near enough because it's such a long way away. Anyway, my question: I belong to a group called For Pete's Sake. It's based in Lancashire. We're very passionate and proactive in protecting peatlands because of its irrefutable role in climate change and mitigation there. How do you see Eden North supporting and harnessing the causes and energy of local campaigning groups such as ours? And can you make assurances that Eden will be peat-free from source?
Gabby written all over it, this one. Gabby? You're on mute, my darling. There you go.
Well, Jane knows a lot more about peat than I do, but I will speak to Diane's. Diane, I think we're seeing that we'll work to the model that we've got in Cornwall with local organisations. So we're an environmental organisation, but I think where we really excel is where we kind of raise up platforms of what's already happening and be a sort of convener and maybe elevate. So what we like to do is go in on bids and programmes and projects that sort of help broker and raise things up. So that's very much how I'm seeing we interact with environmental groups, and it becomes part of that's what environmentalism is, isn't it? Becoming part of a bigger picture, joining up all of these dots and not going for sort of separate pockets of things and isolating things. I'm a marine scientist, so I'm not a specialist in terrestrial. We've got a raised peat bog down at Eden, which we're very proud of. It's actually one of Britain's only man-made raised peat bogs. And we do restoration work on that to enhance it and its carbon sequestering properties. I'm going to be completely honest and say, why would we use peat within the soils that for our planting? It was okay. I'm with you now. We make our own soils generally. So Jane, I'm going to ask you to talk about, because you were there making it.
Sure. Diane, I can absolutely assure you we won't be using any peat in our project. We've been peat-free in Cornwall right from the outset, I think, and actually been pioneering new ways of looking at manufactured soils without using as many recycled materials as possible. So it's something that's close to our hearts. And actually we've been talking to, I don't know whether you know Dalefoot Compost, you've probably heard of them, who make compost with materials very much local to this area, and they're very keen to work with us. So I'm sure we'll be having conversations with them in due course. Absolutely. But we completely share your concerns. And yeah.
Great, thank you. We have actually got a very small, beautifully formed raised peat bog in Heysham.
Great.
I think Lancashire Wildlife look after it. But yeah, it's a lovely one.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Diane. Sorry, I'm just aware we're running out of time. Thank you, Gabby and Jane, as well. One more question. Alistair, if you wait for your, if you're unmuting, good to see you again. Thanks for joining us once again.
Hi there. Yeah, I'll be really quick. I mean, there are amazing places like Leighton Moss, and thanks to John for the amazing facility up there. But I love the idea that the environment starts as you open the door, and even down at Heysham Port where I work, when you open the door with ferries and nuclear power stations behind you, you can see oyster catchers, you can see the kind of coming and going of the tide, you can see the ship sculpture that we talked about before, and the environment really does start outside. And how can we encourage local people to see that and accept it and move forward? On Erica's question, there's an amazing new swimming pool in Morecambe. It's open twice a day at high tide. The water is a bit cold, but it's great to see how many people are now swimming in Morecambe Bay. So Pete, if you bring your tricycle down there, we'll definitely be buying some soup from you. So, but yeah, really, let's try and encourage everyone on the environment, that when they open the front door, that is the environment, and how we get school children involved in that as well. That'd be great. So that's it. Thank you.
Dave, you're on mute if you wanted to say something.
I was just thanking Al for just wrapping us up so well.
It's better than we could have done, really, wasn't it? It was a perfect end to the conversation.
It was. Yeah.
Thank you to everyone. I'm aware we haven't got some questions. That Emma has put an email address in the chat. Please do send us anything that we haven't got to, and any questions that are in the chat that we haven't answered. We will put, when we post a video online, we will have a list of those answers to those questions alongside it. Please do check out edenproject.com/north for the recording, which will be up in a little while, the recording of this session and all our previous ones. And you can also sign up for the future sessions there as well. Thank you so much to our panel and to our Eden contributors as well. Another fantastic conversation, and one that I really feel like we didn't have enough time to really do properly. So perhaps in the diary we could get another environment session. It's obviously been a popular one. Dave, is there anything you'd like to say in wrapping up?
Nothing at all, other than it's great to see everyone, and yes, looking forward to these becoming even more regular. So they really are inspiring to all of us here at Eden, and do help us to try and create the project that you all want, so that this is actually of its place, that it's of Morecambe. So thank you, and look forward to seeing you in a few weeks' time.
Thank you, everyone. Goodbye.